Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and we are looking at Hebrews chapter 13 today, looking at Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We've been hanging out. We're in verses 1 through 5, and man, just was so passionate about all that God was teaching me through this that didn't get barely through half of what I wanted to share yesterday. So we're going to carry that in today. But as we look at Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 and 5, I was trying to share 5 takeaways that I think we can apply in our lives today. Even though this book was written over 2,000 years ago, about 70 years after Jesus ascended into heaven, still I think a lot of nuggets that we can apply in our lives. And so I want to encourage you to take a look at these. I'll just recap real quickly 3 of them that I looked at yesterday and shared with our listeners. Number 1, keep loving each other with true Christian love. And then secondly, invite someone over to your apartment or house for a simple meal or a cup of coffee. Just that's kind of how the first church started in the book of Acts. And then third, we wrapped up yesterday's program about who can you reach out to that is in a prison. And we weren't talking about just necessarily people that are incarcerated, in a physical prison with physical bars, but people that maybe who can't get out of wherever they live, like people that are shut-ins and just health-wise they're not able to drive, or people that are, live in nursing homes. They can't even live in their homes anymore, unfortunately, because they need a little bit of help. Obviously, we do want to help visit people that are incarcerated. But then there's also people that are just kind of in a mental and emotional prison because they're hurting so bad. People that recently lost a spouse. So one of the things I love about my mom is that since my dad went to be in heaven 8.5 years ago, after she took a little bit of time to heal, now quite often she'll wait till 3 or 4 weeks after one of her friends' spouses passed away, and she'll say, hey, reach out to him and say, hey, could we grab lunch or dinner sometime, my treat, and I just want to listen and see how you're doing. And she said, I really try to be intentional about listening because, unfortunately, when my dad passed away, she said, there was a couple people that meant well, but unfortunately, they really didn't ask her much about how she was really doing. They just kind of talked about their own situation. And I want to encourage you to do that with somebody. Just really, really listen, not to just, talk. And I know I'm guilty of sometimes trying to relate stories so I can relate to what somebody's going through. And you might at some point in the conversation share a little something like that. But I really want to encourage you just to be a listener. And I know sometimes the reasons we don't ask people is because we're afraid we won't know what to say. And one of the things, friends, I'm learning, and I learned this from my hero, Wayne Smith. Now that I've been doing ministry over 20 years, I can definitely attest to this, and I've tried to apply it numerous times. Sometimes we don't have to know what to say. The only thing we need to do is simply reach out and just say, hey, I am so sorry about what happened, and I want you to know because you hurt, I hurt. And friends, when people hear that, they just, it means so much when you're hurting. Somebody just says, hey, I want you to know, Dave, because you hurt, I hurt. And then the other thing that I've learned through the years, here 20 plus years in ministry now, is that I also ask somebody when they've lost a loved one or something to say, hey, how's your heart and how's your head doing today? Because friends, here's what I know. The enemy is lying to us all about things in our life that, man, if you do this, things would be perfect or better. And yeah, they could definitely improve, but most of the times, these are things that don't happen overnight, and we're trying to make changes. And so I just want to encourage you just to be transparent with people and just say, hey, I'm struggling. And man, that's hard for me as a man to do that. And as a person, I consider myself, pretty good strength. I've walked through some serious trials and tribulations in my life. But at the same time, man, I've learned that sometimes I just need to call a friend and just ask for help. And mainly involves listening and then praying for me. And it's just amazing how encouraging that can be to us when we're hurting, just to know that one other person reaches out, 1, that they listen, 2, that they care. So think about today. You could really be an answer to somebody's prayer if you reached out to somebody that is hurting because of a loss in their life. Could be loss of a job, We don't think about those things. And even though some people may get a buyout or something, still, when you're used to going to work and all of a sudden your position's eliminated, friends, that can be devastating. So I want to encourage you to reach out to people. A fourth thing that we can apply in our life from Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 through 5, is by honoring our marriage. It talks about in verse 4, give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. God will surely judge people who are immoral and those who commit adultery. And friends, you know me, I'm a grace-filled guy. I'm definitely a hope-filled guy. But sometimes you have to speak truth in love, like we talked about in yesterday's program. And one of the things that I know is that sometimes we just think, as the world acts like, there's no big consequences if you commit adultery, if you cheat on your husband and wife. And yet, friends, I know that there is. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me personally before. I've been married before, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. And it was because somebody was involved with somebody else. And so you got to realize, friends, that the enemy wants to attack Christian marriages especially. And so I want to share 4 things with you that I've learned being a product of unexpected divorce and through years of studying and also through working with a Christian counselor and so much more. But I just want to keep it short and sweet today. But 4 things that you can do to help your marriage is, number 1, protect it and be intentional. Protect it and be intentional. As my hero Wayne Smith, founding pastor of South Christian, used to say, affairs don't start in the bedroom. I mean, it's funny, but it's just true, friends. Nobody ever winds up thinking they're going to be there, but it starts with maybe hanging out a little bit long on a break at work. Then one day you decide, well, let's just go to lunch, no big deal. And yet it can become a big deal quickly. And so you got to be intentional about protecting. If there's somebody of the opposite sex that you're spending a little bit too much time with and you're married and maybe they are, or even if you're not married, if you're a single person, stay away from married people because the enemy loves to tempt us. And so I know somebody listening, you need to hear that. You need to be intentional about protecting your marriage. Yes, sometimes the world will make fun of you, but I don't know anybody that's ever regretted it that's done that for really been intentional about protecting their marriage, that when they make it to the 50-year mark, my parents, I think it was 52 years from my dad died, you had to be intentional. You truly, truly do. Second thing about if you're going to have a good marriage and honor it, you got to focus on the other person's strengths. What they do, not what they don't. Okay? Say it again. Focus on the other person's strengths. What they do, not what they don't. Friends, it's easy to focus on what somebody can't do instead of what they can do. And don't get me wrong, we should try to grow and help one another, but if we've really tried and we just can't feel like we can do all those things that we're needed to do, then we got to cut people some slack sometimes and love people where they're at. Third thing to honor God with your marriage is you got to invest in it. Spend time together, date nights. Friends, and that can be tough at times because you got the kids and finances, but I don't care if it's something as simple as going and getting a $1.50 ice cream cone at McDonald's. Do something to invest in your relationship. And the fourth one, I guess there's so many more, but just because of time, I want to share just 4 things, is to forgive and forget. And in fact, we talked about that, I believe it was 3 or 4 weeks ago here on Monday and Tuesday on Hope is Here, that we have to forgive because God forgives, but we also need to do what God does, and that's forget it. And I think that's the thing that I struggle the most with, and so many people that I've worked with in being a minister of the gospel now for over 20 years. People's like, I know God forgives me, but man, I can't forget it. And I will remind you, if you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, if you ask for forgiveness, the Bible tells us as far as the east is from the west, that God doesn't remember anymore. So quit hitting the rewind button or repeat button and hit the delete button after you've asked God for forgiveness and let it go to Him. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8 says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Oh, friends, that's not just for romantic relationships, marriage. That's in any type of relationship. We got to be patient with one another. We've got to be kind. We don't need to envy. We've got to be careful about pride. And something I'm embarrassed to say that I've struggled with off and on through my life, and maybe it's why God's had to humble me several times. We don't dishonor other people. That's hard sometimes when we get dishonored. It's not self-seeking. We don't easily get angered. I mean, let's be honest. In our culture now, it's so easy for people to get offended. And I want to encourage you not to let Satan steal your joy and get you offended. Fifth thing I think that we can learn from Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 through 5, is stop keeping up with the Joneses and be satisfied with what you have. Stop keeping up with the Joneses and be satisfied with what you have. Verse 5 in Hebrews chapter 13 actually says, don't love money, be satisfied with what you have. And, I admit it, and I've shared on here before that, I can be guilty of playing that old compare game. And two of the people I have struggled with in the past, but I'm in finally a good place over the past few years. But sometimes I have to be careful not to go there. Sometimes I play the compare game with my two brothers. I'm the oldest. Yet both my middle brother and my youngest brother, they make a lot more money than me. Lots more. I mean, lots more. And yet sometimes I want to compare, what car they drive and how big their house is and vacations they go on. And yet God's like, don't do that. Just be thankful for what I have, and be thankful you got a car, and be thankful that most of the time you can go on one vacation a year. Didn't get to do that, I think it was 3 years ago. And, man, it was painful, but it helped me not to take for granted that I could go somewhere to a beach, usually in the panhandle of Florida, and just sometimes we don't know what we've got till it's gone. Amen. Dave Ramsey, who's actually on here from 2 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and just a financial expert, based everything off biblical principles, but he says, don't buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people that you don't like. Oh, man, I love that. Say that again. Don't buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people that you don't even like. And if we're honest, friends, that's what happens sometimes with that. I love this quote. This is from a study Bible that I was using last week to prepare for this message. And it says, in the notes there, really spoke to me here. I was reading about Hebrews. It says, how can we learn to be content? Strive to live with less than desiring more. Give away out of your abundance rather than accumulating more. Relish what you have rather than resent what you're missing. Oh, it's such golden stuff there. And that is gold. Read this one more time. How can we learn to be content? Strive to live with less than desiring more. Give away out of your abundance rather than accumulating more. And relish what you have rather than resent what you're missing. Oh, such good nuggets of wisdom there, friends. And I just want to thank everybody that helps participate in this program, helps us to get the radio programs published and the podcast, everything out, just pulls everything together. Thank you for our guests. Just thank you for so many people that are so good to Hope Is Here, all our financial partners. And no gift is too big or too small. You can go to our website, hopeisheretoday.org. That's hopeisheretoday.org. And all donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated, as we are a 501c3. Also, you can do it online with a credit card, but you can also just mail a check to Hope, make it out to Hope Is Here Ministry. And the mailing address is on our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we continue looking at Hebrews chapter 13. Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow on Hope Is Here.